All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the createTED podcast. And like I always say, I'm super excited to have our guest on today. Today we have Jennifer Nielsen, and I'm gonna let her introduce herself a little bit, and then I'll talk about how I got to know Jennifer. So, Jennifer, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to us?
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for having me on the show. What an honor. So I am Jennifer Nielsen. I am a number one New York Times bestseller author of a lot of books. I mostly write for young people, and that's really my focus, mostly history focused books, but then there's some fantasy and contemporary in there as well.
And I know the people who've read her fantasy love her fantasy, and I've read a little bit of it and have really enjoyed what I've read.
Thank
But
you.
I got introduced to Jennifer going to writing conferences and hearing her speak as a keynote speaker, but then also listening to her just in some of her workshops. If you ever get the chance to go to a workshop where she's teaching, you got to go and go take her class. That's some of the people that I've run into at the same conferences that Jennifer's been teaching at. They're incredible, and you really are one of the better, one of the best teachers that I've come across as far as being able to take the craft and help everyone connect with it where they're at. So thank you for that to start off with.
Well, I think it comes from a perspective of, and I mean, thank you, but I think it just comes from a perspective of I truly believe that every single person who might ever attend a class has it within them to become the writer or whatever it is. Like they have the potential to reach their goal. And so how can I not take that so seriously?
And I'm glad you said that. We're going to get into that. But I have to tell one other really neat experience that I had. Um, I was in Washington, D.C. with my both of my daughters, and we had just gone through the Holocaust Museum.
Mm.
And if you ever get the chance and you're in Washington, D.C. Audience, you've got to go. I think everyone needs to go to the Holocaust Museum and walk through that. Uh, it's it's a somber experience, but it's an important experience for you to be able to have. At the end of when you get done, there's kind of a bookstore and a shop there, and they have all sorts of books telling of people's both fiction telling of those events and nonfiction. And we're walking through and looking at the books that are there, taking some pictures of which ones look like they'd be interesting to read. And what do I see? One of Jennifer Nielsen's books on the shelf. And I remember taking the picture and sending a message saying, "Hey, just thought you'd like to know one of your books is right now one of the featured books in the bookstore." And it was just really cool to see that, just to walk in and see that. So, uh, yeah, that's how I really got introduced to Jennifer. So
Yeah,
that was
that's
a new experience.
I've seen it there in the museum too. It's very humbling
Yeah.
because of where it is.
So you talked, so speaking of her books, there's another book called The Climb that she's put out. And you can correct me if my account is wrong here. But I remember being at a conference, and I think it was a keynote that you delivered
Hmm.
that was on this concept of there's a climb that we each have to go to, and there that we're going to go on because there's different summits that we have to reach. And this was at a writing conference. But one of the reasons I wanted to have Jennifer on today and talk about this is I think this applies to all of us at every area of our life, not just, the creative endeavors like writing or painting, but just in general of trying to create the life that we want, regardless of the circumstances we have. So I wanted to just jump into that and talk a little bit about different parts of uh, this climb that we have to go on and why understanding this idea is important and also how understanding it can really be transformational.
Yeah, yeah, it was a speech back in 2017 that I did, and honestly, I had written like four or five versions of this speech, and so it was the night before when I finally settled on the one that I did, which
Wow.
the only time I had ever rehearsed it was in the car on the way down, just trying to like
Wow.
think of, okay, this is how I want to phrase this line or whatever, but I had never gone through start to finish this speech. And that it resonated so well. That's how you know, like, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't take credit for the speech, I take credit for delivering
Mm,
speech. But yeah, so Shadow Mountain, right here, turned it into a book.
yeah.
Once Upon a Climb. It's gorgeous. And I can say that because I did not create the beauty of this book.
Yeah. And it's walking away from it. And my audience knows my background. Like, I'm not a full-time writer. And I don't ever anticipate really being a full-time writer. Like, I write on the side for enjoyment. And because, there's stories and other things that I want to tell.
Yeah.
But you go to a writer's conference, 90% of the people there, okay, maybe 95% of the people there, they want to be that full-time writer. So I've always felt like I'm like, man, I just don't fit. And so being in some of those, I'm like, man, what am I doing here? Like I'm not the right audience for, I'm not who they normally do stuff for. Well, when I
Well,
hear this,
yeah. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
when I hear this, it's like, oh, I'm like, okay, there it resonated with me because I could see exactly the situation I was in and what my path was. And I'm like, okay, then now I can go and I can attend courses and I can be content with what my goal is. And it's not the same for everybody else's. So it really was this moment that really changed for me. And I don't think, I mean, I still have moments where I'm like, if I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that, but then I have to remember, okay, I'm not the target audience for who they really are teaching these classes for. So I'll take what I want. So it helped me be able to actually better enjoy writing conferences more because I could uh, pick what I wanted and what I needed and realize that, yeah, this is for most of the people in the room, not for me, but there's some great nuggets that are going to help me. So thank you for that.
Well, the whole idea is just like it's a multi-summit mountain, right? And that we're all not nobody's like we're not heading to all of us the same summit. And I think that's the freedom is where you are going. Your definition of success doesn't have to be anybody else's. And it spawned from a woman a little in a different situation from you. But the year before, I had heard a woman sitting in this enormous conference room with hundreds of other writers, all
Mm.
who wanted to be this full-time writer. And I remember her commenting, "Why am I even here? Because everybody here is talented. Everybody here wants to get published. Why should I ever dare to think that it could happen to me? And this is only one room in one city across the country." And she wrote herself out of her own story. And I thought that broke my heart because she was there for the love of this craft that she had. And so really I was thinking of her.
That let's talk. I really like that point about writing yourself out of your own story. Um, we do that a lot just in life. I mean, the story we tell the story we tell ourselves is not the story we should be telling ourselves, and so we literally write ourselves out of what we should be telling ourselves. Um, Share with us maybe some more. Why is that such a harmful thing to write ourselves out of the story?
I think I think we all experience, and we all experience it differently, but we all experience our form of imposter syndrome,
Mm,
right? Because we know our flaws and we know our weaknesses, and we are so keenly aware of them that to think, and then you look at somebody else who you perceive as being further up that mountain than you toward
yeah.
their success, and and we don't judge them by their flaws, we judge them by their success. And so right from the beginning, you've set this uneven balance of them with all of their strengths and me with all of my weaknesses. And so how could I ever think that I should be a person worthy of getting higher on the mountain? And that's what we do. And so then we set small, safe dreams. And and small safe dreams lead to small safe lives. And yet your listeners, whatever it is they're meant to create, they're meant to create big, amazing things, things that will change lives and change the world. But to do that, you have to believe that you could. And that requires this really amazing balance. You have to be arrogant enough to believe you could do it, and humble enough to learn how. And if somebody can find that perfect chord, they are on their way up the mountain.
Okay, I got to ask you a question now, just to help prove the point. Because you mentioned, what in your introduction, your New York Times bestseller.
Mhm.
You've had a lot of great success.
Mhm.
Even where you're at right now, do you occasionally suffer from imposter syndrome?
Oh, it's absolutely, absolutely I do. And in fact, it's I think anybody, I think there are two kinds of people who are creating. And the first is those who have imposter syndrome and they know it. And then those who say they don't have imposter syndrome, which means they just don't acknowledge it. And I do. And part of it is because I still fail. And all the time, I will write up a manuscript that my editor's like, no, no, I can't publish this. And I will put out books that get one-star reviews and that the critics don't like, and things I poured my heart and my soul into, and um, and that just maybe don't sell as well as I had hoped. And that's part of the journey, and that's okay because it means you're out there trying. And if you're not willing to fail, you're not qualifying yourself to succeed.
That's a great point. And I had this conversation with someone at work the other day. I've been doing what I've been doing for work. I design online courses. I've been
Mm.
doing that in some way or another for, I think, almost, somewhere in between 15 and 20 years. And someone said, "Oh yeah, I just feel this imposter syndrome because they've just started and like, man, how do I do that?" I'm like, "Oh, you too." I'm like, "I still do, and I've been doing this." And there's times where I'm like, "Man, I'm like, am I even on the right track?" Because I'm seeing what the other people around me are doing. I'm like, "Holy cow, you're doing amazing stuff, and you're just starting." I'm like, "I got to pick up my game." And so, and it's given me an opportunity to reach out and to try to do that. And some of the times completely just flops. It does not work. But it's that just that joy in the journey of doing that. And so let's talk a little bit about in we won't go over the whole book, but the first section I think has got some a really good place to start. The first item on the list is, if you're going to climb a mountain, you've got to gear up. You've got to have all the gear that you need. So let's talk about some of the things that you mentioned in that section on gearing up that you need to have. And you talked a little bit about them, about, just confidence and humility. Why I really want to hit on this concept of 20 seconds of just insane courage. Talk to us about that. When you say that, what do you mean?
The author Benjamin Mee wrote that in the book We Bought a Zoo, which was also turned into a movie. And he said, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage. And I promise you, something great will come of it. And I think it's so important because sometimes we think we have to be these brave people and we have to be just so strong all the time and so courageous. And then we think, I'm not that person. I don't have that just raw courage. And and so it's like, no, you don't have to be just 20 seconds. And you give yourself 20 seconds of that insane courage, and then that's all we're asking. And so it is 20 seconds. You know, you get into the elevator with that agent or that editor that you want to meet. You don't have to be brave for long. Be brave long enough to say hello.
Hmm.
I've been so hoping to meet you. That's it.
Yeah.
Or you get that opportunity to enter a contest, to put your this recipe that you created out there, to hit send on that job that you really want. And so it just gives us permission to say, look, all you need is the 20 seconds. And I have learned through experience, if you can just do that, amazing things will follow.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I've noticed is people respond to that 20 seconds of courage to where you know, they'll open up, they'll talk to you. So an
Mhm.
example of 20 seconds of courage is me being in a conference, a giant conference, vendor area, running my daughter's booth. and things are wrapping down. And my wife said, "Hey, I'll watch it for a little bit," because I knew there's some people I wanted to try to get on the show, and you being one of them. It took that 20 seconds of courage to walk over. And I've talked to you before, but I hadn't talked to you about the podcasting. I talked to you about my daughter's stuff, but not about anything for me. And so just walking over and you're like, "Oh yeah." And it was that 20 seconds and now we're here. And I'm super glad I did. And that's the thing I've noticed is sometimes when people ask me like, "Wait, how did you interview this person or how did you do this?" It's like I asked. And it's like it's that 20 seconds of courage just to ask a question. And the worst is that someone will be like, "Hey, I'm not available. It doesn't work in my schedule right now." But if you don't ask, you'll never know.
Well, and courage is a muscle. And the more that you use it, the stronger you become. And so it's not about we define ourselves as courageous or not. It's not about that. And it is about saying, okay, you know what? I did this one hard thing, and now the next hard thing is going to be easier because I already know I can do it. And it's like you say, if the worst thing that happens is no, so what? If like that's the worst thing, not a big deal.
Yeah. And just as a side note, you know, being able to, the worst thing they say is no. I've heard Jennifer talk about, and actually, she's I don't know if notorious or famous is the right word. Notorious may not be the best one, but the story she tells about getting rejected when submitting um, articles, and I think they talked about, I got Jennifered. I think that's how the story goes. Because I know you've shared a lot of stories about different rejections that you've gotten over time, and that's really just you showing that courage of, hey, I'm going to send it out, and whatever happens, happens. That I know that's the benefit of the 20-second courage, not just for the person doing it, but the courage that it gives other people around them when they hear their story of, hey, here's how I just took the step and did something, and it either worked or it didn't. But then it lets others know that, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that.
It's basic survival, right? Like if you are lost in the wilderness and you've got to get yourself out, um, you have to constantly make decisions and you choose what to do. And the worst thing to do is to do nothing. And so even a bad decision is better than no decision. And I have made my share of them in trying to get my yes.
Yeah,
And but what I learned from it is so valuable. I wouldn't trade the no or the I lose a little I look ridiculous or whatever, but I learned every single
yeah,
time and I would never trade that.
that's awesome. So there's a couple of things in the gear up area that I encourage listeners go get the book, read through that. There's some other really good concepts and points in there. But I think I want to jump into the next section. It's about establishing your team. Because as
Mm.
we try to grow and change and create kind of just this life that we want, you've got to have a good team around you. And I think in this book, you create a really good structure of being able to, how to identify that team. Because I've loved the idea of Everest for as long as I can remember. Like I've watched as many movies, documentaries about Mount Everest as I can find. If there's been a reality TV show about going up Everest, I'm watching it because it's so fascinating. Like
Yeah.
one of my dreams is to go to Everest Base Camp until I looked at the cost and what the elevation is. I'm like, okay, maybe that's not realistic. I can just I can just watch and be okay with that.
Much about Everest Base Camp.
But you talk about these four people on our team. There's a guide, a Sherpa, a trainer, and then cheerleaders. Let's talk about a little bit about each of those roles and why they're important.
The guide. The guide is a twofold responsibility. And it is you need somebody who is higher on that slope that you are climbing. Somebody who's been there and can just say, "Hey, look at me. I've gotten to this altitude, so I know you can too, because I got here with all of my flaws and all of my mistakes. And if I tell you you can get here, then you can get here." And the guide is really important. We don't listen to the failures. And there are people out there who will say, well, I tried and I didn't make it. Therefore, you are not going to make it either. And they won't say it in those words, but they'll say it. And that is not your guide. Your guide is the one who gets you higher on the hill. But there's a second part to the guide, which is if you are higher on altitude and somebody is climbing behind you, your job is to smooth out the trail to make it easier for the person following you because you are benefiting from other people ahead of you who smoothed out the
Yeah.
trail for your climb. And so, yeah, we choose our guide.
Yeah, I love that because that hits on the concept that we've talked about on the show a few times about looking at what doors have been opened for us, but then also remembering we have a responsibility to open doors for others and to mentor others in, whatever aspect of life, that there's such a blessing that comes from being mentored and being coached, but then we also have to pay that forward and do that for others. And the
Mhm.
same because it's all about helping other people have opportunities to grow.
Yeah, it really is. And what it does for both sides of that, to mentor somebody else, to give of yourself and your talent to help somebody along is only a good thing.
Yeah.
And in what it brings back to you, and then of course what you can do for others. But yeah, so you have your guide, you have your Sherpa. Your Sherpa is your climbing partner, but they're going to be the person to carry the weight. They're the
Mm,
person who's strong when you're not. And and it's somebody, it might be a critique partner, is very often a Sherpa to say, look, this is a mess and I don't know how to fix it. And they'll help you carry that weight, and you
mm,
need it because in any climb, there are times when you're just going to lay on the trail and just say, I cannot go
yeah.
an inch farther. And if somebody can pick up the weight with and climb that with you, even though you still have to take those steps, there's somebody who will
Yeah.
take the weight. What's our third one?
Third one is trainer.
All right, the trainer. This is okay. So the guide is somebody who's been there, and they're going to say, "I'll show you how to get there." But the trainer is the person who is you've got to be teachable and learn from them. And sometimes we get our ego in the way, and we want to just think that we know how to do it. And I'll tell you, the best teacher, best trainer I ever had, it was somebody I exchanged a critique with, and she's like, "I hate your main character," and I was like, "Ooh." And I was like, well, that's may I hate you. Like it was just so because I had loved my main character, and how could somebody just hate this character I had created that was so amazing and awesome? And every instinct I had was to ignore her and tell her that she was wrong and mean and that she would never, I was never going to listen to her. But I said, "Okay, can you tell me why?" And she explained, and she was right. And that one comment taught me more about writing,
Wow.
1,000 compliments I had ever received.
Mm,
And she reframed my understanding of what a compelling
mm,
character is. And she was my trainer.
mm,
And she got me higher on that mountain and got me better able to climb. The cheerleader, though, is important because it's important to distinguish. And okay, this is where it came from. There was somebody in my life who I love and who loves me. Not my husband, not my immediate family, but somebody close. And had just said to me, like, I'm on book 4, and I had failed so often. And finally, I am publishing, and they just said, "So are you really serious about this publishing thing?" And I was like, this thing that I've dedicated years of my life to and that I have just gone through, every difficulty for. And I thought, and for a long time, I struggled with that person. How could they love me and not
mm,
understand that? And what I finally understood is, no, they love me. They're just not my cheerleader.
mm,
And that's okay. That's okay. I can have other cheerleaders. And here's a person I love, and they're very much a part of my life. They just are not on that mountain with
mm.
me. And that's okay.
Now that's a really good point. There's one thing I'm gonna jump back to circle back to the guide for just a minute.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's things that the guide does that they don't realize
Mm.
how they've they've helped. Like they're saying, "Hey, you can do it. Keep going." And they're, the guy that continually helping get us up the mountain, showing us the way. There was a moment at this last Storymakers, um, and this was like maybe a guide slash cheerleader. So maybe I'm not sure which role to put this in, but I'll tell the thing and you help me figure out where we put this one. This one I came over to ask you about being on the show, and my daughter was with me, and she talked about this book that she's working on, and you had just given her some praise and told her just some different things about what you thought about the concept. And the thing that was hilarious, watching her try to compose herself and not just squeal with delight and glee on the way back, and just to walk back, try to act cool, be like, okay, yep, yep. She's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Jennifer Nielsen just told me that. Oh my gosh. And it was so funny. I was trying my hardest not to laugh just because I was so happy for her, because I knew how much those words, and maybe this is cheerleader, just how much those words meant to her, to where she's like, yeah, I can do this. I can totally do this. Like, I'm going in the right direction. Because she'd had some other experiences with some other authors at that conference where it was a similar experience happened. She's like, yeah, okay, I can do this. I can do this. The reason I bring that up is sometimes when I think this is the cheerleader, when we do say things to people to encourage them and support them, be like, oh yeah, I think you're doing great. Or, we give them that advice and we help them. We have no clue the impact that is going to have, because they might not show it at that moment. They might be like, oh, okay, yeah. But not realizing that it has this huge impact that will, this going forward, just they can barely contain the excitement just because of how much it meant. So for my daughter Abby, because I know she may not have the opportunity to say thank you, but I'll say it here. Thank you. As a dad, being able to watch that moment, like you had such an amazing impact on her right there. Different than the workshops and everything else, which has been a huge impact. But just that moment of just those words, to be the cheerleader, to be like, hey, and a little bit of the guide of, you got this, you can do this, keep going. And she comes back to that. And, I share that so everyone knows, hey, we can have a huge impact on people's lives in small and simple ways that we won't even recognize. But we have to have that. We have to take advantage of those. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. She did play it cool. So I had no idea. Uh, but I do believe this, when you create anything at all, and you decide to put it out there in the world, that is standing naked in front of a crowd. It is scary. And that's you share your art, you share a recipe that you created, anything.
Yeah.
And if if you can be the person with sincerity to validate a little bit of that, um, I know for me, when that's happened, it's been life changing, because it's so scary to just put yourself out there.
Yeah. And the thing I love about that is it gives us each an opportunity to have a sincere, intimate moment of human connection
Hmm.
that now, with a lot of social media, we're on computers all the time. Sometimes we're isolated. We don't always get to have. And to be able to have that, especially when we're trying to do something hard, to be able
Yeah.
to have that validation from anyone, especially when it's from people who are outside of your close circle, to be able to get that, it's like, wow, okay, they see me, they see what I'm trying to do. And it just, those moments help us each have that, be able to have those 20 seconds of courage later, because we're like, okay, they saw me, I can keep doing this.
Yeah. And I say that as somebody who has been seen. So
Yeah.
yes.
One thing, as we're wrapping up and getting down to the kind of tail end of the interview, one thing that there's other, I don't know if we'll go more in the book, but there's just guys, there's just some great stuff in this. Go get the book, go read it. Wherever you're at, it really will have. I think it has potential to open your eyes as to what you can do in your life and just being able to see where you're at on your own path and what summit you're going for. And for some of you, it's going to make you realize, oh, I'm looking at the wrong summit. I'm
Mhm.
not looking at the one that's right here in front of me. I'm focused on the one that's like 5 summits away, which maybe I'll eventually get to, but I'm not focusing on the one that's in front of me right now. And that's it really it is a transformational book, not just for writers, but I think in just the realm of just life coaching. I think the concepts are huge. And so thank you for that. But I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Well, not too much. But the idea of just the role that, how do I want to lay this out there? And you figure out how to summarize this in the next, like, kind of, we've got about 4 minutes left. I had heard, I had a friend tell me about a moment where he heard you talk about creativity. And it was kind of more in a family setting. And he told me about it, and I was like, oh my goodness gracious. Like, it was one of the most powerful things I've ever heard you say. And I've really wanted to figure out, okay, what nuggets out of that do we need to bring into the interview? Um, if you had to pick one or two, and I know I talked to you before about, that I'd heard that, and so I'm hoping you remember which one it is. But if there are any points out of that that you would share just with a general audience about kind of just creativity and everything, what would you share?
Just in general about what I believe about creativity.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
I think I think every one of us is, I mean, I don't know what you're hoping
Yeah,
for, so leave me if you're like, can you talk specifically? Can
yeah,
you just say this? I do believe that every single one of us is meant to be creative and that there are so many ways of being creative. And I believe it's a bit of a partnership with God that that we're almost translators.
mm,
And and I think that creativity it is the this great expression of eternal ideas and concepts because the end result of it, I mean, the idea of thinking you can write something to existence, paint something into existence, place something into existence, bake something, and all of this, and what that means for all of us, it means that we're creating something bigger than ourselves.
mm.
And and what an incredible thing that is to know that you are creating something that will outlive you and it becomes part of your legacy and part of who you are. And I think there is a form of magic in all of that.
That's awesome. That helped me summarize um, what I was thinking. And I'm going to step it back a little bit. I think we each have the potential to create moments for people, whether that's a story that they're reading that impacts them or baking. But we create experiences to be able to have with people. And a lot of those experiences, the impactful ones, they last for a lifetime. Just like
Mm.
that one I shared about my daughter, with what you said to her, that was an experience for her. And that's what I really think is a truly creative thing that we can all do is we can look to see other people and we can create experiences for them that can, especially when we do it in partnership with God. And sometimes that's an intentional partnership. Sometimes it's we're just going about being who we are,
Mhm.
and He
Yeah.
uses us to do that, to create these moments and these memories that change lives. Whether that's I've heard you talk about how you've people have shared with you, hey, your story changed my life, and then you talk about how them sharing that changed yours. There's all sorts of opportunities to change people's lives. And that's what I
Well,
think creativity is really about.
I should just say with that, like, and this I firmly believe, I don't believe that God cares a bit about my books. I just don't think he does. Like if I write this or this, but I believe he cares a great deal about who my books give me access to.
Mhm.
And so for anything, it's not about what we do. It is about who is impacted by what we do. And if you keep that person in mind, why would you not work up the courage to just try?
Amen. And I think, audience, I think that's a great place to end. And Jennifer, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show and just continuing to be a guide and a cheerleader to all of us who are trying to create. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for the honor and good luck for all of your listeners to get out there and do the thing that they do.
All right, everyone, we'll see you on the next episode.